Welcome to the meeting, the Kaimai Rural Ratepayers Association meeting. I would like to thank you all for coming along today. We've got some dignitaries and also got quite a few from the community that have come along today. So, especially to those in the community, I really appreciate the fact you've taken the time to support us today. That means a huge amount to us, so thanks very much. And also to our community boards, our Deputy Mayor, and to Sam, our GP, our MP. Now I'd like to encourage you. Dr. Sam.
Good evening, folks. I'm Tina. I'm from the Kaimai West Community Board. And Wayne asked me to do the karakia tonight. I need to say that's a real privilege to pray on behalf of a diverse group. So I put some thought into how I might, don't sit there, that's my cup of tea over there. I put some thought into how I might construct, put together a karakia for us tonight. Karakia is a really good way for us to start with an intention. So depending on where your faith or your traditions come from, I'm praying from a Christian tradition. But basically I'm asking the Lord to guide us and hopefully make crooked paths straight tonight. So there's going to be some crooked paths. Let's hope we can make some of those straight and that we're able to come together in one accord. So would you mind if I did a karakia on your behalf tonight? I te atua arahina mai mātou I te ariki. Kia tika te ara tōriko I raro I tō maramatanga. Whakekia mātou ki te aroha me te rangi Māori, hei ara haumara mō mātou katoa. Amini.
Thank you. So, let's move on to the first slide. So this is basically what we're going to do. We're going to cover off a little bit of health and safety. What is KORRA about, introduction to the committees and so forth from there. Yep. Hello. Yeah, right. So health and safety, the toilets are out the back, just through the door out there on the right hand side next to the toilet, and assembly area will be out by the bus. We need to assemble for a reason. Hopefully we don't. Just sort of take a moment just to go along and explain a little bit about how KORRA came about and what the purpose of it was. And in simple terms, what was happening was everybody in the local community was wanting to have things changed and done, but wasn't having a lot of success. And the concept behind KORRA was to go along and say, well, if we could bring all those voices together and then fight the fight as a unified front rather than individually, we might have more success. And so that was the concept behind it, and it came together, and it did. It worked really well. We had a lot of success. We had people that weren't prepared to come and visit us over here because the bridge was too scary because it was dark and single lane. So we got cameras and lights at the bridge. Pori Road was a health issue because there was so much dust around the local residents getting crook. It was tar sealed. We've got security cameras in a Manawa Road and so forth. So doesn't sound a lot, but quite significant to us as a community. And I think that really sets a little bit of a tone for tonight in regard to a lot of the things that we're asking for in the local community are not necessarily big items, but they're important. And it's simple things like, for example, getting Wi-Fi in the hall. So I went along and we were just kicking it around today. I said, well, one of the things we'll do is get some Wi-Fi in here. And they said, oh, that's the Wi-Fi thing up there, but no one knows how it works or what it's done and all this. So sometimes it's just a matter of floating the idea and being a little bit of a champion of it. And amazing how things start to somehow solve themselves. So now we know that that's there, that's 3/4 of the problem solved. I think we can do it from here. So look, that's the idea behind KORRA. The other thing is it's a little bit about bringing the community together and making sure that we have a unified community, and rather than, I call it a village. You know, like overseas you go along and you see the European villages, they've got the church, and they've got the pub, and they've got the football team and all that sort of stuff. And it's a real galvanised community, and that's the vision here for KORRA, is to try, if we can, somehow bring the community together and galvanise the community. So the first person I'd like to invite up today is I'd like Sam to come up perhaps and have a quick chat with us if you'd like to come up, Sam. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Wayne. It's fantastic to be here at Kaimai School and to see all of you. I know a fair few of you in the audience. Margaret, welcome back. I hope you managed to get some rest on your long journey back from London. And you and Don had a successful time over there. Look, one of the things Wayne wanted me to talk about was the interconnection between local and central government and how that interplay happens. So I'll comment a bit about that, and then just around some of the other observations that I've seen. I was here 2 years ago when I think we may have even still been in opposition at that time, and we were, weren't we? And we brought Simeon Brown along, who was the transport spokesperson at the time, and also Tom Rutherford, who was the candidate for Bay of Plenty. And we heard a packed hallway out here talking about all the challenges you face as a local community on State Highway 29. Very dangerous road. A lot of very hairy moments there, and one or two I might relay as well. So I'll make a few comments on that because I know it is a big local concern here in the Kaimais. But firstly, around what central government has responsibility for. Obviously, we have all the state highways. So State Highway 29, that's our challenge to solve, and we do have some challenges there. We are working very closely with local government around building up a regional deal, and I understand that we are getting pretty close on that. So hopefully our region is one of the first off the block, and there will be a couple of announcements later this year and then early into the new year. So I want to say thanks to representatives from the Western Bay Council, from Tauranga City Council and the Regional Council for their collaboration on that, and making sure that we've presented a really strong case to the government around what we want regionally, so we can secure some long-term agreement between central and local, and even if there are changes, whether that be in Wellington or here locally, that we have a clear pipeline over the next 10 plus years around what local priorities are and how central will help to fund and finance and make that a reality. So all of your local roads that feed off State Highway 29, that's Margaret's words, so I'll leave those to her, but I understand a lot of the major challenges are on State Highway 29, and you can see for yourself, and you know it so much better than I do, but when you hear it tearing up that road and suddenly someone has to turn right and they're in a passing lane and there's low visibility, there's a lack of signage. I think there's also a lack of awareness, even from people who don't live in the lake, even people who live in Tauranga probably have a lack of awareness. You know it intimately because you drive it, and jeepers, I'd hate to be having kids that are having to drive on those roads. I'd be scared for them. I know one or two occasions when I've gone off and off one of the side roads and then had to turn back onto 29. It's a pretty unpleasant experience. I was in Te Awamutu a couple of months ago where my wife's auntie and uncle live, and their son was there, and he'd just got a brand new Hilux, and I said, "That's a nice car," and he said, "Mate, let me tell you what happened." He was driving back over to the Waikato, up 29, there was a car in front of him, he was overtaking, and then he didn't know it, but there was another car ahead of it. And so that car had visibility of it, pulled back into the inside lane, and he had nowhere to go, and pulled in too late, and took out the guy in front of him. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, but both cars were written off. He's now going through a process on that, and it could have been so much worse. And I know that you know very well that on a number of occasions it has been so much worse. And I was chatting today with with Gary when I got here around some of the challenge, what we talked about 2 years ago and where we are today. And from what I understand, there hasn't been too much movement around any of that. So look, that's a real concern for us. And I'm not currently the MP for this region. If I'm lucky enough and work hard enough, then hopefully I secure the seat of Tauranga again at the next general election, which will encompass this area all the way up to the top of the Kaimai. So it'll become a real challenge and something that I'll focus in on. And any of you who know me is that I have no hesitation around sinking my teeth into a local issue and going pretty hard on it, whether that be at the government or at the council or wherever it needs to be. If there's something where there's a big, strong local sentiment around it, and I know that there is here, then I can assure you, if you pass me the information that you need to get in front of, in this case, Chris Bishop as the Transport Minister, I will represent you as hard as I can on that. And I don't think it's an enormous expense, right? When you look at how much Central is currently doing in a whole range of spaces on the transport front, this isn't too big of an ask, especially when you consider that it is such a critical route for New Zealand, right? We have a huge amount of our freight that comes over there. It's a busy road. I've even taken to driving up State Highway 2 now when I go to Auckland, just because I find it a little bit less stressful than I do going over the Kaimais. And that's saying something, because State Highway 2 isn't a great road either. But those are my high-level observations. I will admit that I'm not close or intimate with the details that you have around it, but I am always here to receive feedback, and so please pass that to me as you will, and I will work with Tom for the remainder of this term, and then hopefully next term, if I am re-elected, I will advocate for you really strongly on that. So I'm not sure what the process is here, Wayne, or how it works, or whether you want me to open up for some questions. I'm happy to field anything that anyone wants to ask, and I'll try and answer it as candidly and as openly as I can, and if I don't know, I'll just say I don't know.
Well, Sam, I could comment. I think what we have done up here in the Kaimais, we have done all the basic work that's required on every intersection. And when we had the public meeting, Debbie spoke on Old Kaimai Road. Nichola here was speaking on Horipori Road. Miranda Campbell was speaking on Manawa Road and choked up where she was doing it. We had Julie Mixon speaking on Soldiers Road. All those intersections, people cannot get on and off them safely. And if we're doing development down in Tauranga, then it's going to bring more traffic up here, and so it's fundamental that we actually get action. We didn't have NZTA at the public meeting that we held, and so I wasn't a member of Smart Growth, but I could go to the workshop, which I did, and I spoke there about this awful problem we have on 29, and I saw David Spears and Jen Andrews, who were there from NZTA, neither of them involved now, and I bailed her up afterwards and said, would she be prepared to meet with the local people? And Debbie was there with me when we met with them, and they were so helpful, and they said, we're going to apply for funding to do the design work for the intersections on State Highway 29. That's where it is at the moment. So what happens? David Spears gets promoted over to Hauraki, and I don't know where Jen's gone, and everybody seems to have forgotten what the issue is. And Andrew Corkle will not respond to a letter that I've written, and Tracey tells me he's coming to council next week. He needs a bond under it because they've applied for the funding, and where is it? And how long do we have to wait? Yep. It's just not good enough. And then, in the middle of the election campaign, I get a call from a lady from Makaroa, and she wants to talk about the Thorn Road intersection. So I said to her, do you want me to meet you at Thorn Road? And she said, oh no, I live in Makaroa. And I said, well, can we meet halfway? So I ended up meeting her over at Sulphur Point where she worked. And she, poor girl, her son has just bought a farm in Thorn Road. And so she was coming up to see them. And she's in the passing lane, because that's what she's got to do, to turn right into Thorn Road. She had bus trucks coming up behind her. She couldn't make the move because the traffic from the top of the Kaimai was so heavy, she thought she was going to die. And the truck just moved over to that left lane just in time. So that's another one that really is quite paramount. Now I understand he's coming to council, so look out, it's just not good enough. And they seem to be so weak-kneed and there's no guts to them. And so on Wright Road, they're too scared to talk to the local people. So it's just not good enough. And as Debbie said, old Kaimai Road, give me a pot of paint and I'll fix it myself.
That's really good at the moment. They're doing roadworks and we've got a pull-in lane because it's all down to one. There's no passing lane. Everyone's remarking how great it is coming to do our work and stuff.
So do you think it would stay that way?
Yeah, we just need the paint men to get the lines right.
Right. So Sam, I'll have a coffee with you anytime because I know these intersections. I didn't live here for 10 years. And so it's, there's work to be done.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. You're a very good local representative here. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Karen and I live on Walter Henry Drive. I've lived up here for quite a number of years now and seen some really good changes with Margaret. What about rail? Why can't we get more of the freight on rail? That would save our problem with the trucks. Those trucks are getting bigger, longer, heavier, and they're just ruining our roads.
Yep, there are definitely some big trucks out there at the moment, but that's a decision that the transport companies will make when they move stuff around. Rail can be quite inefficient. Actually, the only cost-effective part of it is in our region. So where they can, they do put it on rail, but short journeys to Auckland, often it will be on the back of a truck. But I do note your concerns, and they certainly rip up those roads as well.
Right, thank you very much.
Got off rather lightly, didn't I?
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Margaret and Murray-Benge to come up and say a few words. A few more words.
Well, I have to say, this is my home. And I lived here for so long, and I know so many people, and I know every intersection on the state highway. And what I like about it is that when I've tapped people on the shoulder, they've actually delivered. And so Nichola here, James, she took over as chairman of KORRA when Wayne took a back seat for a bit. And so that's how you do it. Tap Tracey on the shoulder, great councillor, and that's how you do it. Can I just introduce, Wayne, all the people who are on our community board? For the first time, we've got representation for a community board which covers the whole of the Kaimai ward, which not just Amakoroa. So, but we've got two representatives from Amakoroa, Murray Marshall and Chris Diva, Bevan Rakoia, and we've got Tania, and we've got Keith, known as Ski, and we've got Tania. Sorry? Tina, beg your pardon. Tania and Tina. So those two women come from the Tupuna area. But for the first time, we have someone from up here, and that is Keith. He lives in Ohauiti. And so we've got a really good coverage for the Kaimai ward from the community board. That is, in fact, an advisory group to council. We've got two councillors on the community board, and that's Tracey and myself, so which we're quite delighted about. So there are lots of issues that have to be resolved, but this one of the state highway intersections must be top of the agenda. And we can't give up on that, Sam. and I think it's just about time for another public meeting. And when Mr. Corkle comes to council next week, if you were free and could come and sit in on that as well, would be quite worthwhile. I'm frustrated at the lack of delivery service from NZTA, which is government's responsibility. I know Simon Bridges, so I wrote to him about Wright Road, and he wrote back to me personally and said they weren't going to do any more of those wire cutters down the centre of the road, but they didn't want to touch Wright Road and the intersection and the other one by the Mills Reef because it would set a precedent. So you almost think maybe vigilantes could go out and chop the concrete out and let people have a decent turn for what they need to do. Oh no, darling, I would stand by every word I say. So I feel very strongly you don't get where you need to be unless you lobby and lobby hard. And everybody has got to do that today in order to make sure that our voices are heard. Because we are in the Kaimais, and I didn't stand other than because I told my husband, these people are being walked over, I think I should run. And so that McLaren Falls Bridge wouldn't be there, the pedestrian bridge, if I hadn't been on council. What did I do? Set up a community group, and we worked hard and did all sorts of things and lobbied the council again and again. Former Mayor took the money off the 10-year plan, and for that, and so was able to get an amendment, which you don't normally do, and so that we could actually get that done. And so it came in at half the price, and it's been such an asset. And so there's more work to be done, but I just think, Wayne, I'm just grateful for you that you have decided to stand up again and take over from Nichola, who did such a good job, and Debbie was her right-hand man, and so too was Lorraine Wienick, and those two women are the hall committee here for the Kaimais. So if you need anything as well as honey, those are the two women that you've got to go to. Graeme, you should know them. Right. And then Graeme Mills lives up at the top of Amanua Road, and he was the one who said there's something wrong with the roading network. You can't have tourism coming in here and driving on the wrong side of the road. So thank you, Graeme, because as a result of that, we've got arrows pointing to tourists as to what the road side of the road is.
Not painted yet.
Sorry?
You're not painted yet.
Oh, never mind, but it's coming, isn't it? Sometimes you don't rush these things.
No.
So, Wayne, I think I've said enough, and I know that Chris is going to outline what they've been doing while I've been away. There is one thing that I will say, and say it publicly, and it's something that people don't like, but I believe in democracy, and I'll defend that to my death. That's one person, one vote, and equality before the law. And so I'm not in favour of appointments before committees other than those that have been elected. So I just put that in because there's a forum being created, and that's 5 from Western Bay. Tracey and I are not on it. 5 from Western Bay, 5 from Tauranga, and 5 from Tangata Whenua, to do with the 3 waters. And the 3 waters is a critical issue for Western Bay, because you're going to do the paying, but you won't have the say. And so one feels really quite concerned. I think, Sam, the government's got it wrong. They should have put the reforms in first and done the water later, and if it was needed. So we don't know it yet, and there are not enough questions being answered. But the ratepayers are the ones that should be having the say, not appointed people. I don't care what ethnicity it is, it's just wrong. And it's really important that people know what they're going to be paying for and how much they're going to be paying. And now, it might not matter for people up in the Kaimais because you look after your own sewage, you look after your own water, and so, but for an awful lot of people, that's not the case. So anyway, I'm just delighted that we've got a number of people here tonight, and so thank you, Gary. I think you're going to live on the other side of the hill, but in the meantime, we'll take full advantage of you. Thank you. Thanks,
For those that are interested, I saw a very interesting interview from the Waimaki Mayor talking about what the water and what they've done down there. So Sam and the councillors might be an interesting watch. Just only recently come up, but they've got their own. They've been approved to have their own council doing the water without going out and all that sort of stuff. So quite an interesting read. Also, they talked about the cost associated with it. So I'd also like to now invite Chris Deaver up to introduce his team and to also go along and talk a little bit about how the system works. This is new for us, new community board, in regard to what's available to us and how we get used. So please welcome Chris Deaver. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and there's a slide there I haven't seen before, but anyway, here we go. Listen, I have got some experience with State Highway 29. As you know, the council's got some pretty strict rules about where we put election signs, and just past the power station down there, I put one that wasn't technically on private property. Well, none of it was on private property actually, but and after about 3 telephone calls from council governance people advising me that all signs must be on private property, I decided I better go and shift it. So I came down here one day and I parked my car on that very busy stretch just past the narrow, fairly narrow, but really just past the power station. It is frightening standing on the side of the road there. A truck and trailer going to go past, you end up with like a vacuum as the truck goes through. In the end, I didn't shift it. I rang them up and told them I did, but I didn't actually shift it because I was too bloody scared to work on the side of the road there. So I do feel your pain in that reside. Anyway, what I was here for tonight really was to sort of talk about, we've had a representation review, and our Kaimai board is sort of quite different to what it used to be. We've got one less councillor, and we've everybody in our ward now is covered by a community board. And community board's a little bit of a new animal, I guess, for those places that haven't had one. But in fact, a lot of the things that the community board, are going to be aiming at are the sorts of things I think that you've indicated that the rural ratepayers is already advocating for. So I think you'll find that with Ski and Bevan there, and Tania and Tina, that you'll find that there will now be some funding available. There will now be perhaps another line into council, and that should work pretty well. All I was really going to do was, there has been a representation review, which is something that happens every, I think, 9 years? 6 years. And in our ward there were some quite dramatic changes, I guess. Our ward is the little blue one, a little purple one in the middle there, and you'll see the 222. And essentially the review decided that we would have one mayor, that we'd have 2 councillors from Katikati, Waihi Beach, 3 councillors from Kaimai, and 3 from Makatu Te Puke, and of course the Maori ward councillor who operates right across all 3 of the wards. So that's a little bit different. I can't actually remember. I know we used to have 4, now we've got 3. So but it's definitely different to the way that we had it set up before. You know, as it turned out, we've got James Denia, who you all remember from our mayor from the last triennium. Darlene Dinsdale, who's got the Murray ward, and 3 councillors, Margaret Murray-Benge, Tracey Coxhead and Graeme Elvin, all of whom are here tonight, who are our ward councillors. We now have a new organisation set up as well. Up until now there's been an Awakaroa Community Board and I've been the chair of that. Now we've got an Awakaroa Kaimai Community Board. You know, what does a community board do? Well, you know, the purpose and role is set out in section 52, I think, of the Local Government Act, to represent and advocate for the interests of the communities, that's you, to consider and report on matters referred by the council. So if the council says, can you go off and look at something, then that's out, we need to do that. Maintain an overview of the services that are provided by council. Liaise with community organisations and interest groups. So that's really why we're here tonight. We want to make sure that we understand what's happening in the various parts of our ward, and so that we can advocate not just as the 2 people that are in your bit, but actually as a community board as a whole, and make sure that we are looking after the whole of the Kaimai ward. We have, of course, a couple of councillors on our community board to help focus us on making sure that you know, we do have a little bit of a global view of all this. Delegated functions. These are delegated functions that we have in our last training, but these will be reviewed by the new incoming council over the next few weeks, I guess. You know, we have input into the council and its committees. We provide community feedback to council. We receive reports to council. From a council appointees, relevant council matters, control, spend, monitor funds. We actually get a budget, so we will have a budget to spend. So for those things like a bit of paint to change the, we will have some funds to be able to address that. We're not a major, source of funds, but really it's the sort of thing you were talking about, Wayne. Those smaller things that just need to bloody get done, and so we will have funding to do those. And the amount of funding we will have is yet to be decided by council, as they get into their role. One of the meetings they're going to have, one of the sort of induction meetings they're going to have is how the finances work, and they'll make some financial decisions about that. And we've got reserve funds and things that we can allocate as well. The six elected members to the community board are in the Awakaroa division is Murray, Marshall and myself, Tina and Tania in the Kaimai West ward, and Bevan and Keith in the Kaimai East ward. And essentially State Highway 29 is the boundary between those two. Obviously Awakaroa is on the peninsula, but if you're coming up the hill, on the right hand side is the west and on the left hand side is the east. Funnily enough. And we've got 2 councillors appointed by the mayor or appointed by council, Margaret Murray-Benge and Tracey Coxhead. And I for one look forward to working with them and the rest of this very competent community board that we've actually put together. I'm really impressed with the quality. They're obviously good decision makers because they made me the chairman. But look, I'm really impressed with the group that we've got here, and I'm sure that we'll be able to make some really good decisions in our region. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Gary came back to our slide, but while we're doing that, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of Nichola James here, has been the holding chair for the last 2 years. Her quiet but forceful style has been able to go along and drive us forward over the last couple of years, and she's been supported by an absolutely wonderful team. And so I'd just like to, if you could please put hands together for them. change.
Thank you very much, Wayne. It's been an absolute pleasure to be chairperson for the last 2 years. And I'm very thankful that Wayne has stepped back into the role again. I'm going to remain on the committee, but I'd like to introduce our other committee members who have been on the committee for the past 2 years also. Might like to stand up. We've got Lorraine Wheeler, who's from Omanawa Road, representing Omanawa Road. We've got Debbie Marshall, who's from Old Kaimai. We've got Brian Smith, who is from McLaren's Falls. We've got Graeme Mills, who is from Omanawa. And we've got David Jones, who's from Ruahihu. I'm from Kuni, which is off Pori, and Wayne is also from McLaren Falls. So we've got quite a good representation of the area. But, Gary over in the corner there, hiding.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, Vice Chair, yes, absolutely. There's also Old Kaimai. So yeah, we've got a great little team, and we do encourage you to come along to our community meetings when we hold them, because there's always lots of interesting information that we share. We love to hear your feedback as to what your concerns are. So just keep an eye out on those Facebook pages. We do try to do the odd newsletter drop, but they do cost, so they are a little bit limited. But we encourage you, if you've put your name down tonight with your email address, we're trying to get more people to join. We used to have a subscription fee of $20 a year, but we've actually decided to wipe that just to encourage more of the community to sign up, which hopefully we will get their email addresses, and we can keep you informed by sending out regular updates as to what we're managing to achieve in the community. So yes, I'll pass you back to Wayne. Thank you.
When you have an organisation like KORRA, I think it's important that you have a very clear direction about where you want to head and a very clear vision about what you want to, where you want to go, where you want to end up, and I suppose what success looks like. And so I thought I'd put together a few of my thoughts. I can't say there's other thoughts of the committee because I've only just taken it over about half an hour ago, but these are my thoughts in regards to the sort of things where I'd like to go. The first thing is appreciating what our identity is. So when you go along and you ask someone what the identity of Christchurch might be, for example, people say, oh, that's the Garden City, or Napier, well, that's the decades. It immediately resonates with you. And so one of the questions that I asked myself was, when I think of Kaimai and Manawa, what does our identity look like? And one step further than that, and I think it's quite an important point for the councillors, is what does the Bay of Plenty identity look like? And the reason it's important is because we are rural/lifestyle, and we're sort of probably right on the fringe of rural lifestyle versus urban area/industrial area. And we want to stay rural and lifestyle. And we want all the traditions that go along with being rural and lifestyle to stay in our community. And Keith and I had a chat about what it's like being rural, and we said, sometimes the urban people just don't understand it. Like, you come to the Kaimai School here and you have carp day. You go along and you swim in the river. You go along and one of the things that a lot of people don't realise about the Kaimai area is my farming brother-in-law is extremely jealous. Because we go along and we put the spade in the ground and we dig it, and there's about 6 inches of topsoil, maybe a foot of topsoil. Big, dark, deep, black topsoil. You can grow anything here, right? And my biggest fear is that we become like Auckland, just layable in concrete and just concrete over the whole top of it, and then they look like Tuhakaraina. Tuhakaraina should be the food bowl for Auckland, and what is it now turning into? Housing. What a waste. So, to me, we need to go along and ring-fence this area and say this is an important part of our heritage, it's an important part of who we are, it's an important part of our identity, and and the Bay of Plenty is the food bowl. That's when you think of Bay of Plenty, that's what you think of. You think of horticulture and you think of growing things, and I think it needs to be retained. So the other thing is that's unique about our area is it's a tourist destination. You go along and you ask people, where are you going to go? Oh, we're going to go to McLaren Falls. We're going to go and see the park. Fantastic, amazing park, one of the best parks in the Southern Hemisphere, right on our doorstep. We've got a amount of pools, we've got pools in the park. This area here, what it does is it gets the tourists to stay an extra day or an extra 2 days in our area. That's revenue for the whole of the Bay of Plenty, right? So this is a revenue generating area, right? We've got, and you'll see in the next slide here, I'll come back to this one here, but you'll see in the next slide that there's a lot of activity that goes on here in the rural area from a tourist point of view. So we would like the council to go along and actually have a designation that goes along and identifies tourist areas so that you can go along and say, well, normally we might mow the lawns once a month in that area, but this is a tourist area, we're going to do it once every 2 weeks to make sure that when the tourists come and visit us, it's a place that we can be proud of. So, the reason for this slide here is I wanted to explain a little bit about the difference between lifestyle and a rural property. You get 170 acres of farm, right? It's fenced, it's grass, it's growing sheep and animals and all sorts of stuff. But the trees are optional. You go along and you take a look at a typical lifestyle block, and that's a typical lifestyle block, full of trees, full of birds, and it's a wonderful place to live. I was speaking to one of the people down at NZTA, and they said, we love coming to McLaren Falls. Why is that? Because my children have some room to play. When my grandchildren come and play, they go along, we can kick the ball in my backyard. We can go along and run around. We can have that childhood that I had, and that's what I want for my grandchildren. So, this is a little bit, I touched on this before about the Kaimai School and how important the traditions of the Kaimai School are, and the sort of thing, the winter hunting competitions. You don't find that in the urban area. These are rural traditions, and they must be fiercely protected and preserved. These are our important campaigns. Road safety, obviously. The tourist district destination, having that actually as a formal designation within council. Civil defence, so that we have done some civil defence preparedness. Right? This came about through from the Napier stuff in regard to when they had the stuff over there. The question I asked myself and a couple of neighbours, Brian's bit included, was how does that look like if that hit us? How well prepared would we be? What about if we can't? What about if we're isolated? Or what about if we've got a huge fire coming in the park? Tourists come along, no fires in the park, someone decides to light a fire and suddenly the park goes up, right? We're miles away really from the fire service. We're going to be self-independent, so we need to be thinking about that. So there's these sort of things that we've got to start putting on the agenda in regard to how do we go along and start making sure we've got a bit of readiness and we're self-sufficient in some of the things that we do. Making sure the halls, which probably are going to be one of the areas that are going to be used in civil defence, have good Wi-Fi. Why is that? Well, well, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, having good Wi-Fi, right? Why is that? Because when it's there, what are people going to do? They're going to jump on their phones and let everybody know that they're okay. So community events, let's make sure that we go along and have regular community events. Open wake nights, I don't know, all sorts of things, anything at all to help bring the community together and galvanise the community. And the other thing is electricity reliability. we are lucky enough to go along and have power generation locally here. So in the event of an outage on the grid, if the outage on the grid is a reasonable distance away, then could we have it so that there are more substation points around the place so that our area can be isolated and it can still be powered to go along and keep our area alive? Is that a possibility? I don't know, but at least let's put it on the agenda. I'll get Gary to talk to this now. This is about 7 guiding principles from NZTA in regard to their Road to Zero campaign. So, thank you very much.
Wayne Lowry and Nichola went to the NZTA presentation they had down at Kaimai School Hall last weekend. Pardon me, and spoke to them. They had hoped to come along tonight, but unfortunately weren't able to do so. But we hope to have them next year at one of our next meetings. In talking with them and doing some research, and I have to thank Wayne for a lot of this, we've come to try and understand how they work, how they think. Because, as Margaret knows, we started 10 years ago on the road to get work done on the intersections. 2015 it was. And we tried to give them options for something to mitigate it. And my thinking comes from working in health and safety, that if you've got a hazard, and who here thinks that those intersections are a hazard? Okay, I think you can universally say they're a hazard. And in health and safety, there's an established process and set of steps of how you do. You either remove it, or you find some workaround, or you put some signs up. And as a first step, that's what we asked 10 years ago. And nada, crickets. So looking at NZTA, we're trying to work out how they think as a way to try and get through whatever lethargy or obstinacy in the way they think. So, researching their website, they have these 7 guiding principles. We promote good choices but plan for mistakes. And I think all of us who have lived here have seen some event around those intersections where people make mistakes. I have almost been cleaned out a couple of times. They design for human vulnerability. They strengthen all parts of the road transport system. And we have a shared responsibility in improving road safety. And that is something we're trying to get through to them, that they're responsible, because if someone dies or gets hurt, aren't they responsible? And we had an accident, it wasn't a car, it was a cyclist down Pori Road. I haven't heard anything about what happened, but they got airlifted in a helicopter to Waikato Hospital, so it was obviously not good. Their actions are grounded in evidence and evaluated. Well, we've certainly provided them with evidence. 2 years ago when we had the road meeting here, we videoed it, and that was made available to them. And there we had the residents, as Margaret talked about, who lived in each of the roads talking about it. And, there was one lady, who was the lady? She was really cracking up. Which was the one? Miranda, yeah. And again, crickets. Our road safety actions support health, well-being and livable places. Well, this is our home. We live here. And while the traffic, which is sort of nationally oriented, is overtaking, we still want to have a place to live. And finally, we make safety a critical decision-making priority. Well, what more can we say? This place needs to be safe, and you shouldn't have to wonder whether you're going to make it home safely, particularly when you have to negotiate the amount of traffic. Now, I'd hope to actually show some video, because as well as videoing these events, I have been going down to the various intersections and, sitting there for an hour and gathering video. And, it's a little bit like candid camera at times. My work commitments haven't allowed me to spend as much time doing the post-production, but I will be doing that at time and posting it up on the website, just showing some of the incidents and the close shaves, particularly down at Poripori Road. I've got one instance which I really wanted to show, where there were just two cars stacked up trying to turn right, and a truck came powering around the corner, and it was almost like a dance. You know, this big, truck with a truck and trailer unit, and how it didn't hit, I don't know. But it sort of came within a whisker of the cars and a whisker of the barrier on the left-hand side. And I just hope that those things get through to the people who make those decisions. Was there something else that we had? Oh, you've got the... in terms of making it right, we've talked about if they don't have the money or the time to re-engineer the roads, well, do what Debbie suggested, just get out with some paint. And with the roadworks up Old Kaimai Road, it would be an excellent time. I mean, and it has been great because they've got the road codes out, and it means that you can turn safely. There's a place for you to sit without fear of a big truck coming up right behind you. And the same at Thorn Road and McLaren's Falls. And with each of these places, signage, just so people are aware. There's just going down the hill from Old Kaimai Road, someone's put a big advertising. Have you seen that big black and white one? I'm not quite sure, it's some business. That's the sort of size signs that we need to have, alerting people that there's this intersection, that there will be people in the right-hand lane. So, as a short-term thing, signs and re-layout of the road so that there's a place for us to sit safely. There's a reduction in the overtaking lane, but there's plenty of other spaces to overtake. So it's not going to be a great loss for the traffic going over. Poripori Road represents a bit more of a challenge, and that unfortunately is going to mean a bit more work because they need to move the intersection a little bit further up the hill, just to give some gap. Because being right on the other side of the bridge, there's just no space. So that unfortunately is going to, I think, be one of the top priorities for the works, to re-landscape the intersection. But I really feel for the people having sort of come in and out of there a couple of times just in the course of travelling somewhere.
So the Soldiers Road is the same?
Yep. Absolutely. Nowhere to go.
Yep. So they need to move it away from, because it's in the bridge, and that's like a movable object that concentrates the flow of traffic, and they need to move it some way. So, I'm not quite sure who's got the bigger picture of thinking. We've dealt with people, as Margaret says.
Gary.
Sorry?
We have.
We have. But we're looking at NZTA. We're just not quite sure. We deal with people and they go yes, and 2 years later they get promoted somewhere. Is that the Peace Principle or something like that? So somewhere along the line, we need to have someone who's got a vision for this road, because it's a major artery, and if you've had anything to do with hospitals and people's health, blood flowing through your arteries and veins is critical to life. And if you get a blockage, then things go wrong, and that's when people die. And the same thing is happening with our roads. This road's an artery, and it needs to be fixed. Otherwise, we've got a hazard that's been identified, and okay, we had a cyclist who hopefully will live, but at some point in time, it's going to get worse, and we want to avert that. And it's standard procedure. Health and safety has been with us for 25, 30 years as a standard business practice, and it just seems to have been ignored. And as Margaret says, you only get something by lobbying. So Sam, we're looking at you. And look, thank you very much for coming here. I mean, you're not even our MP. We invited Tom, but Tom unfortunately had another event that he was scheduled, and Sam has come. as well as obviously our local MP come 2026. Time, I've got to shut up.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, just one last thing. Nichola talked about communication. We try and communicate with the community through the mail drops. Our mailman, Jason, he distributes those free, but it costs us a few $100s every time we do that. KL print are nice, but they still have to charge. We're trying to build our database. Not everyone's a Facebook person, but we're trying to build our email database. So please talk to your neighbours and get them to go to the website korra.co.nz, KORRA.co.nz, and get them just to sign up, because the sign up now is no cost, and we're perhaps looking at the community board to be one of our sponsors to cover the management of such facilities needed to make this work. At that point, I'll shut up.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'll throw to our friend Graeme here, the local bus driver, just to talk about what it's like on the... I'll bring the bus driver. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
What's our local bus driver? Does the road 8 times a day.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity, Wayne. Yes, I drive that large white thing out there, and listening to all the conversations about the intersections and so forth. I don't carry a spare pair of underwear with me, because at this stage I haven't had to use them. But I'll tell you what, it's come bloody close. Some of the antics you see on the roads, even just between the school and Ruahiki roads, where my trip is, getting in and out of those roads, it's sometimes you just got to hold your breath and hope that what's coming in behind you doesn't hit you. But I would really like to get you, the councillors, to go back and consider. I believe you may be advertising the appointment of a new chief executive soon. It's in the process. What
Put
I'd
your
like
hand up, Graeme.
Sorry?
You put your hand up.
77, no. What I'd like you to do, please, is consider that person has the testicular fortitude to get your staff to perform. And I have a past colleague, when I was employed by Tauranga City Council, before I retired, that there was some policy there through the late Alan Vickers, Stephen Town and Paula Thompson as chief executives, that if staff got a request or an email or some communication, there was a timeline which they had to respond. Whether it was a quick response within 24 hours, I received your complaint or your concern, I'm onto it. The response had to be formalised within a week. But I get very frustrated when I send, and Tania, I think it is, reports through to council. I get a quick response from some customer service person saying, yes, it's been passed on. But the comment at the bottom is, but if it's roading, it'll take 15 days. What? 3 weeks to respond. When I first started driving that white bus out there 5 odd years ago, there were very few signs on McLaren's Falls Road identifying it as a bus route, a school bus route. I made a request to council staff, and I lie to you not, that took 4 years to get 3 signs put up. Astounding. So what I'm saying to you councillors, get your chief executive to get the staff to perform. And I hate to say this, Karen would have heard it. When I was employed at council and I was dealing with a rather irate customer, I used to get the comment, "But I pay your wages." Tell you what, I'm making the same comment now, retired. I live at Manawa Road. I make the same comment. I'm paying your wages, so lift your performance. So there is some customer service out of council. One of the problems here is the roads. And around the periphery, and I'm not talking about State Highway, I'm talking about the Clarence Fall, Manawa Road, Corridor, etc. Manawa Road especially. At the moment, for the last 7 or 8 months, we've had big trucks going up and down, and they're causing mayhem with the seal. So what do council do? They get their contractor, and nothing wrong with the contractor, because they're only doing what the contractor says. But they get them to get up there with an asphalt spray, spray a bit square, throw some chip on it. In 2 days' time, it's all flicked out. So where's the value for the ratepayer? There's none. So there doesn't seem to be a long-term strategy on getting these repairs done. The Manawa Road is not designed for heavy trucks, but they're there. But make the repairs so people driving past on their push bikes don't fall off. So that's what I really want you to take back to your team. Lift the performance. 15 days to respond, 3 weeks, in my view, is totally unacceptable. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much, Graeme. This is one of our other little campaigns that we've got going, which was a bus service up here. There's an on-demand service that runs in Tauranga, and running a stone's throw away from Tauranga, so it makes common sense to me to go along and have the on-demand bus service, be able to come up to Kaimai, probably as far as the school up here or maybe a little bit further, and pick up people on demand and take them into Tauranga. Off peak we've probably got 10-15 minutes maybe from Tauranga, so it's not a big, it's not like we're 45 minutes away. So it's a relatively short distance, the service is all there, the apps are all there. It's just a matter of going on and working with regional council to see if we can get it up here. So once again, I think it's one of those objectives that I think is very achievable and would make a big difference to our community. This is sort of a wee bit paraphrasing a little bit of what Graeme's already said, but one of Graeme's ideas was to go along and actually have lights at either end of the bridge. The big problem, of course, is just reinforcing it, it's a single lane bridge. Right? So when we had the accident a couple of weeks ago, and the detour path was via McLaren Road, basically it just became a traffic block because there was no traffic management and there was nothing happening over around the bridge. It was an truck that ended up getting stopped, and eventually the whole road ground to a halt. So one of the things that this talks about is basically McLaren Lane Bridge is about resilience and having man transport resilience in regard to the event of emergency. We've got the port just over there, that's a lifeblood for our community, and so therefore we need to keep it fed. And having a single lane bridge where you can't use a truck, it's not truck friendly road, and you've got your port as a customer, it's not a good look. So we definitely need to have, put on the radar in regard to how we do it. Now, the bridge probably is, because of the way it is, it may end up being too expensive for the local council to go along and justify it as a business case on its own right. And that's maybe where a little bit of central government support may come in, based on the fact that it's an important route for the port and provides that path to diversity. And I agree with this gentleman, Mr. Rakoia, the ex-interim CEO of the TEA, when he said that the increasing in traffic is only getting worse as the traffic increases. And it's not a linear scale, it's a exponential scale. So as the traffic increases, more and more accidents are going to occur. We're going to see more weather events, and we can expect to see more accidents on that road. This is what I was talking about before about tourists. I apologise for the slide being in the wrong place, but this is our area. Waterfalls, beautiful park, even the glowworms, lovely. That's what someone said, but seriously, it's my new happy place. Fantastic. Skip through that. So when I was, let's go back. When I was walking around the place and I was talking to a few people, someone came up with this idea and I thought it was a bloody good idea, and so I'd like to share it. Yeah, I'll certainly get the right slide. This is about connecting McLaren Falls Park to the falls. Right? Now, at the moment, when you go down there is no actual pathway that goes from the park entrance down to connect with the car park that then leads you down to the bridge. A little boardwalk or something of that nature. She said, I can't walk my pram down from the park down to the bridge. And I thought, very cool. Simple, not hard, but something that someone has to sort of bring to your attention, and I thought it was a great call. And so, once again, I'd like to put that on our agenda.
You want to come down there with a bus when someone's walking there?
Yeah, I can imagine, Graeme. I can imagine, mate. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch now on, Graeme already touched on the standard workmanship from Wisnesky. And here you can see, this is lovely. This is a lovely tree-lined area. Plenty of mulch in there. You can see there's been a bit of thought going to the design, nicely laid out. It's really nice. Unfortunately, that's Tauranga City Council, not Wisnesky. So this is where we're at with Wisnesky. So this is the car park. You can see here, it's quite deteriorated, very unkempt. No one's got any pride in their workmanship. And this is a tourist district.
What is this?
This is the upper car park. Top car park in front of Halls there.
That's Tauranga City now.
Oh, is it?
The park and the Mineral Falls belong to Tauranga City.
Oh, Margaret.
Car park on the road.
Sorry?
The car park on the road, is that Tauranga City?
Between the falls and park entrance to the canal, it goes across the canal. It's the top of the estuary or the
Yeah, the top of the estuary.
above the falls.
It's a tough one getting there. If I could just comment.
No.
You'll give me a choice.
Sorry. But my point about it is that this is what we're based on. His responsibility is really it's not that important. But the point about it is that's where we're at. We've got graffiti. Yeah, so still there. For some reason the other two pictures aren't coming up. But let's go on here, Graeme. This is one of the other things I wanted to point out was when people come to the falls, what they want to do is they actually want to look at the falls, right? So that means you stand on the footpath and you look through the shrubbery at the moment down onto the falls. So we need to have a management plan for that area that goes along and says, okay, so what do we want to look like? Let's start off with a vision for the area. What do we want it to look like? How do we plant it out? What do we want our tourists to experience? And at the moment, we don't have one. So there needs to be a very clear vision about how we're going to treat our business and what that experience is going to look like.
Wayne, can I interrupt?
Sure, mate. Yeah.
One of the problems with this area is when you're coming down the hill from State 29 onto the road bridge, because of the vegetation from the bridge up the hill to the car park, you don't have good vision of cars coming down. And those cars on the other side have got to give way. but you can't see until it's too late.
Was that why you nearly hit me there?
Yeah, comment, but that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
Is the vegetation, and I think a couple of years ago you went up there by yourself with a slasher and pruned some of the trees back because the vision was impaired. So that's something that needs, whoever deals with it, whether it's Western Bay or Tauranga City, someone has to look at it.
We're down by the bridge, that's our responsibility, and up around the corner,
Okay.
that's our
And
responsibility.
I think one of the other things that I'm going to be a bit facetious, and I was going to suggest to council that perhaps on the other side where the giveaway signs are, they actually write them in Te Reo, they write them in Mandarin, and they write them in Australian, so that people coming over there actually understand what giveaway means. Because I've come down there and I've got to the end of the bridge in the bus, and there's a car halfway across the bridge. Who's going to give way? I'm certainly not backing up the bus. So there needs to be a bit of a plan sorted out for that particular area, because where's Gary? Health and safety, yep, it's a problem.
I went along and put a work order in and had one side of the bridge, which is the non-State Highway 29 side of the bridge, cleaned up. And it was cleared, and we had great visibility, and it worked really well. And then I said to them, well, could you do the other side, please? No. Hang on. Why can't you just go along and do what you've done on the same side over there? No. So that was the response I got from Western WBOPDC Council. So, yeah, there gets a problem right there. Someone needs to take ownership, and that's why, once again, I go back to that tourist designation. You have to go along and you've got it designated as a tourist area, the bar is so much higher, and now we go along and we start getting the correct resources being put in to make it a worthwhile tourist destination. But I'll save the best for last. Some of you who've used this facility may recognise it. All I can say to you is, when I was standing there outside the toilet taking the photograph, I could smell the stench from there. Right? Opening the door just about made me crook. So it is the worst facility I have ever seen in my life. We have now got power on the toilet side of the bridge, because it's used for the lights and the camera on the McLaren Bridge. So that gives the people different options now than they would have had when they first put that in. So what I would like to see is it reviewed in regard to perhaps having a toilet that's got a man's side on one side and a female side on the other, and actually having a proper toilet that can be used and something we can be proud of. And a decent cleaning regime and all that sort of stuff. This is what, touching on the civil defence, that's one of my big concerns, one of my big fears, I suppose. What I did do was, I won't mention names, but I was talking to someone in the room, and they said that they had to stand and watch their house burn to the ground. And so what I did was, we went around and people have expired fire extinguishers at a commercial building, they've got the big fire extinguishers, and they time out. It doesn't necessarily mean they don't work, it just means they time out. And we've got a few of these things and we spread them around the community to make sure that someone gets had a fire extinguisher in there. So, look, it's not the right answer, but at least it's a start.
Wayne, can I just add on that? For those of you who have known me for a while, I've done a lot of work with civil defence. This word here is Sonata on the back of my laptop, which Sam, I have yet to come and talk to you about. Since about 2004, I've worked with civil defence in the alerting area. I don't want to go into that too much, but one of the things that I learned is that you have to plan for situations where things that you normally expect to have don't work. When your power goes down, and we all know about power going down here. Who remembers the 5 days without power 2 years ago? Yeah, we had no power for 5 days.
The water generator.
Yep, so did we. What happens? Very quickly your communication goes down. You expect to have a cell phone, but the cell phones themselves, most people would last, 12 hours to a day. The cell towers only have enough UPS to last 2 hours, then they go down. And while there are some generators in emergencies, some of the practical things that happen is those generators disappear. Because if you don't have a generator and someone's got, like, there's a generator, and in the middle of the night it disappears. And so there has to be a preparedness on the basis of, if you've got nothing, what do you do? And what I see is this hall is potentially a place that should have some sort of facility where people can go and it's resourced to be able to help manage the situations. Because if it's like a storm or things like that, then you need access to some help. Most people on a farm have got a chainsaw, you know, so if there's some trees down that are blocking the road, you know, you can go in there. You don't call the council in those situations, say, please come and everyone, you know, needs to pitch in. Or bring a tractor and tow it out of the way or things like that. But there needs to be some sort of central point. In another lifetime, when I lived in Helensville, I was one of the 2 amateur radio operators to provide communications. The other one was actually the Catholic priest, and it was the only Catholic church that had a 2-metre radio transmitting aerial on top of the spire. So there are things like this that can be done that allow the community to come together to prepare. And there's, you know, the old Boy Scouts, Girl Guides thing, be prepared. That's a consideration, because if something goes bad, something goes down, everyone says, why didn't someone do this? Well, who is that someone? And unfortunately, it's all of us. Okay? And we've only got ourselves to blame if we don't do that. And one of the things I like about KORRA and why I've put my time and effort, you know, I video all of these meetings and put them online so that people who can't make it here can see it. So that 2 years after our meeting where we talked about the roads, it's still there online and we can, you know, point to this. Is because that's what makes a better community, you know, that people stand up and actually do things, that there's a forum to have ideas, the ideas that Graeme talks about. And I really appreciate having the community board and the councillors and Sam and Tom, when he's able to make it, to come and listen and for us to ask questions and actually make things happen, because nothing happens it's a law of physics, you know, if you don't do anything, nothing changes. And so hopefully as a result of this meeting and meetings that we hope, because we hope to have them every 3 months, to make things happen, you know, that you start throwing balls up and see what happens, you know, someone will bat them away or in a forward direction, hopefully. And that's just one of the campaigns. We've got the website now where we want to be putting up information about these campaigns and about what our meetings are doing. And civil defence is certainly something that's close to my heart because of the work that I've done, and hopefully it's not going to go to waste.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'll just like to wrap up now. And we can have a cup of tea and have a chat with anybody that you want to have a chat with. There is one thing that I'd like to just add to this before we part. Our community is weary. When I say weary, I mean worn out, trying to get things done and then nothing happening and all that sort of stuff. We have the new structure now, and I think from a credibility point of view, to demonstrate that the system works, we need to have some quick wins. We need to go along and show that this mechanism does work and we can make a difference if we use the mechanism properly. That'll be good for us, it'll be good for the community boards, and it'll be good for the council. So hopefully we can work together and identify something that is doable relatively quickly. And we may need to go along and push the boat out a little bit, but you know, if we can go along and make something happen. For me, and I may be being overly simplistic here, But the quick win that they give us the most credibility, I think, is repairing 2, maybe 3 of the intersections on State Highway 29. And by that I mean get the can of paint out and go along and shorten the overtaking lane and create the right turning bay. If you were to do it on State Highway 29 where Thorn Road is, it's still a 2-kilometre overtaking bay, right? And then if you take a look at how the road sort of basically comes to the top and then dips down the other side, realistically it's probably not doing a hell of a lot for the overtaking lane anyway, because every traffic's starting to speed up there anyway. So, you know, if we could get 2, maybe 3 bays with a can of paint, then obviously it's not quite that simple, but you know, in concept that's where I think if we could get that working and that was our win, we'd be happy chappies. So I first of all say thank you very much to everybody that turned up today, community boards, people of Tupuna, thank you very much, appreciate that, thank you. Sam, thank you very much as well, and also our committee. Sorry.
Could I just have a word?
You certainly can. Here you go.
I've got a challenge.
Yeah.
I've got a challenge for you. You mentioned the toilet at McLaren Falls. Gary Ellis said we needed a coat of paint in it. That was his compromise. The manager for McLaren Falls, and I can't remember his name, but he went, TCC treated him so badly, he doesn't want to know us anymore. But on the old power station, it should have a viewing platform at the top, and where the double doors are, he believed that there was room for a container there to collect the rubbish, and toilets in there. There would be room for at least 3. And that's and when we did all the work around that Falls power station, we had the road up to behind the power station. Mr. Marshall did it, and he said somebody told him that he could, so he got his tractor out and went up behind the power station. So it's there, and there's so much more to be done up here, which is exciting. But I just want to say that we have a new council, and I think the council that you've got, never mind what position I've got, when I looked at the result, I thought that is a very good council. The community boards you're going to pay for, so you should make the most of that representation. I look at the Kaimai board, and I tell you, and it's on public record, that that's the powerful group within the council itself. That's Graeme, Tracey and myself. Wow, what a trio. So I think road safety, but the one person that I think that I'll be saying to Andrew Corkle, what have you done with Adam Francis? He was the safety engineer on State Highway 29, and I worked with him. He was absolutely wonderful. Elaine Garnett rang me and said, Margaret, there's no room for the right-hand turn with the alterations the council has done, the NZTA has done. And so I rang Andrew, and he said, well, Adam at least, and he said, well, I'll pick you up, Margaret, and we'll go and have a look. And so he got his wheel thing out, and there was definitely room. That's how we got the right-hand turn. When Corkle was appointed, he rang me to say that Adam Francis was known as the mayor of the Kaimais. What he's done with him, I really don't know. But I'm just delighted that we've got a community board that fronts the whole of the Kaimais. And I'm just so grateful for you, Sam. It doesn't matter whether it's you or Tom. The fact that you're interested enough to come and be involved with us, I think, is really important. And we'll get Christopher Bishop here as well. That's a challenge for you. And we'll work on that one. He's got State Highway 2, the problem. But I just say, Wayne, thank you for taking over the responsibility. And you don't know the cost of putting in a 2-lane bridge on McLaren Falls. That's how we came to get the pedestrian bridge, because you do a 2-way bridge, then you've got to alter the access up and the access down, and so those are the challenges. But I'd love you to have a look at that old power station. because there's a lot that could be done with that, and I think we know enough people to know where we could find funding away from the council, because I think that's Tauranga Cities. But we could actually work with that and see if we could do something a bit different. Because when we had the group here some time ago, several years ago, they were out there cutting down the rubbish and getting rid of it. And we did so much good work. Dougie was alive then, so that's over 10 years ago. But it just needs a new broom to start picking it up. And you're just the man to pull the community together and make sure it happens. So I'm just delighted that it's all starting to happen, and I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to bring the meeting to a close and invite you all for a cup of tea and a bite to eat. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.